Hi, my name is Marissa Primavera. I'm going to be doing a video presentation on the 4 types of arguments that we have learned throughout the modules. I'm going to start off by saying what a premise and a conclusion are, just because those are our main points in the 4 arguments we're going to be learning about, and as well as seeing in the examples I have. So a premise is your statement that provides reason or evidence for the conclusion. So think of it as if you were to do, like a basic 5-paragraph essay with your introduction, conclusion, and then your 3 body paragraphs. Your 3 body paragraphs, each first line of those will typically be your main premise. Kind of just gives the reader, these are my reasons, and then following behind with sub-premises, rebuttal premises, and evidence as well. We're pretty much just going to be focused on premise and conclusion though, just because that's what correlates with what we're learning right now. And then your conclusion is the statement that argument is trying to get across. Your conclusion will essentially be a sum up of what your premises were and what the reader gathered from the author in that argument. So we have a valid argument, one where conclusion follows the premise, meaning if your premises are true, your conclusion will be true. This is pretty much what you'll see a lot of the times. It's going to be structured. Your 2 premises will correlate as well as your conclusion. It will be easy to gather your conclusion from these 2 premises because they just flow so good together. Only thing about a valid argument is it's still going to be valid even if your premises and conclusion aren't true in real life. Then we have invalid argument, one where the conclusion does not logically follow your 2 premises, meaning that the argument has flawed structure, whether it's one premise that's not so good compared to the other and the conclusion supports only one, or your 2 premises make sense and your conclusion isn't logical. Again, regardless of truth to them in real life or not, doesn't really correlate, but it's more so if the conclusion aligns well with the 2 premises you have. Then we have sound argument. This is an argument that is both valid and has true premises. Sound argument is your main one that's going to model a very strong argument. Sound is different from valid because valid's not correlates to the real world, and your sound argument will. So pretty much your premises and conclusion are going to be true on paper and true in the real world. Then we have unsound argument, one that is either invalid or has more than one false premise. This is going to be your weaker one out of all the 4 of them, simply because your conclusion is not guaranteed and is not reliable because it doesn't correlate with your premises again, or your premises are flawed, so the conclusion comes out flawed. So now I have an example for you for each one. Again, your valid argument is the one that is going to be true and it's going to correlate with each other, but not true in real life. So I have them right here. This is the one. So P1 stands for premise 1, P2 stands for premise 2, and then conclusion is your conclusion for this. So I have all ocean wildlife can swim is my premise 1. Then I have for premise 2, dolphins live in the ocean, and then my conclusion, therefore dolphins can swim. Both of my premises correlate. Wildlife can all swim, dolphins can swim, so my conclusion, therefore dolphins can swim. That's kind of an example of when it would be like in real life, besides the all ocean wildlife can swim, because starfish don't, sea urchins don't, stuff like that. The majority of them do swim, so that one's an example of what it would look like in real life. Then we have invalid argument. Again, I have the P1, the P2, and the conclusion just to kind of simplify it for me. For my premise 1, I have sharks have gills to breathe. My premise 2, dolphins don't have gills. And then my conclusion is, therefore dolphins should not live in the ocean. My 2 premises are correct. Sharks do have gills to breathe, and then dolphins don't have gills. But my conclusion doesn't make sense because dolphins do live in the ocean. So that's kind of what that demonstrates, how the conclusion doesn't align with the premise 1 or the premise 2 or my statements I made. Then I have sound argument. Florida is part of the 50 states of the United States. I was born in Florida as my premise 2, and conclusion, therefore I was born in the United States. That is true in real life, which demonstrates that. And both, it all correlates in the real life, where Florida is part of the 50 states of the United States, and I was also born in Florida, therefore I was born in the United States. Then I have unsound argument. Premise 1 is geckos change colors to blend in. Premise 2, my eyes changed color. Conclusion, therefore we have similarities. That one doesn't make sense simply because I have a flawed premise and I have a flawed conclusion. Geckos change colors to blend in, which is true. My eyes change color depending on what I wear, but typically they don't. And then my conclusion, therefore we have similarities, that humans and geckos don't have similarities. They're different things. So that one just demonstrates the unsound arguments because it's flawed. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't really have a good structure to it. So that is what I have for you. Thank you.